When was the last time you played an Xbox 360 or original Xbox game? Or for the gamers out there who are on the other side of the aisle, when was the last time you played a PS3 or PS2 game? And just throw it in there, maybe a GameCube game. The reason I ask is recently, I actually have been playing some of these older games. The Xbox Series X is actually a very good backwards compatibility machine. And for the games that are available, which is many games, there's a few here and there that aren't available, and it does kind of suck, but Xbox does far better than anyone else in the market when it comes to backwards compatibility and being able to have access to your old game collections on a current device. But on top of that, these older games get a lot of really good built-in boosts. Many of them will have what's called auto HDR, and they will get, of course, just by brute forcing it, much better performance, high frame rates. And then they also get like an advanced level of anisotropic filtering, which kind of smooths out edges and kind of removes, the jaggies, you would see in these older games when you played them on their original consoles. Many of these older games were actually much better looking and had the potential to perform much better than they did, but they were limited by hardware. And when you get to play them on the Series X, some of these older original Xbox games are available on Game Pass, or if you have the game yourself, you can install it. Same thing for a lot of Xbox 360 games. You really get to see the true potential, and many of them really don't look half bad at all. In this video, there is actually some gameplay footage, which I normally don't put on these videos because I like them to be more of a conversation piece or a little bit more podcast-like. But for the sake of the experience, I did put up some footage of a game called Dark Void, which is kind of like a sci-fi third-person shooter, has like a cover system kind of similar to Gears of War, but had some interesting twists to the gameplay. You don't see some of those in the footage I have, but if you get a chance to check out the game, it's actually pretty cool. You have some neat jetpacks and flying around and changing your perspective when you're doing your cover shooting and such. But beyond just the performance of the game and looking great for a very old game being played on modern hardware, there's just the user experience in general. Games were just more fun, and I don't mean that in like the boomery way, like, oh, everything current is bad. There's a lot of new games that are actually great games, and they are a lot of fun. But overall, you have this like major disparity between your AAA games and your independent games. The independent field is extremely cluttered these days, and the AAA games, many of them are just complete garbage. So when you do find something good or something you enjoy, there's a lot of issues I've found recently that get in the way of you just enjoying it, right? So for online games, for instance, I play Call of Duty Warzone quite a bit. I've talked about this in previous videos. I also have always enjoyed Dead by Daylight. And then recently, because Call of Duty Warzone was actually kind of bothering me in certain ways, and I'll talk about that, I downloaded Apex Legends, and I gave that a try. It's okay, maybe an alternative here and there. But the problem, I'm going to talk specifically Warzone for online play, but this applies in many cases to single-player games, RPGs, adventure games, shooters, etc. We have built both the interfaces and the actual game experience in such a way that it gets in the way of the fun factor. And sometimes we just have overcomplicated a lot of these things. User interfaces on modern games are very, very counterintuitive. They're a mess. A lot of times they don't really make sense, and you're literally just navigating menu after menu after menu, screen after screen after screen, just to get to basic things that you want to do. I just want to launch the game. And so many times it takes so many, we'll just call them clicks, to get to these things. Back in the day when phone interfaces or Windows and things like that, previously there were and interfaces for consoles, there was this big focus on eliminating clicks. like getting the user in and out of the experience as efficiently as possible, because it eliminated irritation and was more likely to keep people there. And video games have completely lost it when it comes to that, especially in these online games of service things. Halo Infinite's a pretty good example. Warzone, Apex Legends, it's so convoluted and all over the place. They put so many options and images and animations and all that stuff in front of you that you get lost trying to find your way around. And even if you don't get lost, just the fact that you have to do so much navigation to get to, regular simple stuff. And like I said, this is not just in your online games. This applies to almost every other game we play. Playing this Dark Void game, I should have a clip here showing the menu briefly. It's extremely simple. You put a game disc in. The game launches, does the little splashes for the studio logos and such. And the next thing you find on the menu is a play game button or a resume game button. You'll find options, and you'll find credits usually, and then something that's some sort of bonus content or extras. Usually it's things you find in game to unlock, journals and things like that, or collectibles, those kinds of things. But it's all very simple. And when you get into those menus, like the options and things, those are all very simple. Just a single click, you get to this main screen. A single click on any of the options you change. It's all super easy. It all makes sense. And then the gameplay experience itself, every game nowadays has to be really complex in ways that just don't actually make it a good experience. In these older games, you press the button, you jumped into the game. You start doing simple, fun activities. The worlds, sometimes they were somewhat linear, but it was a nicely crafted experience around you. The levels were fun to navigate. The challenges of them were even this Dark Void game, as I was playing it was on normal, and it was more challenging than many games I play now on harder difficulties. But it didn't have all this other crap in your way while you were playing the game. It was just, you start playing, you start shooting at things, you start collecting things, and that time it was a little too much and I died. I gotta do it again. So there was the challenge to it, but it was fun, and it was without clutter in the vast majority of cases. You'll find simple little collectibles like you'll run around this corner here, like maybe I'll find something. There's a journal on the ground, so you collect it. Or in other games like the old Gears of War, for instance, you'd find the cog tags. Or in the Halo 3, you'd find the skulls. Tomb Raider, older Tomb Raider games, you would find all kinds of neat little collectibles. But the actual game experience felt like a game. It didn't feel like it was trying to be menu simulator or management of your inventory simulator. Now, there's exceptions. Obviously, games like Oblivion and Morrowind and all that did exist. But even then, it was an RPG. It was as complex as an RPG needed to be. Most of these games now feel like they're complex for the sake of being complex. And they put layer upon layer, not just in user interface, but just the gaming experience itself no longer feels like a game. It feels like you're trying to manage a game instead of playing a game. And even if you don't necessarily fully agree with me, like I said, there is a lot of great games that exist now. I agree, and I enjoy many of them. I enjoy Warzone. But the problem I have with Warzone is it is a live service. I understand it's free to play and all that, but honestly, at many times I feel like, man, I would rather just pay up front for this game and have that be it, or maybe pay a monthly subscription of some sort, because it being a live service game, they sit there and they screw with stuff all the time. Like the playlist. There's not like a set basic playlist. If you just want to jump in as a solo player, or maybe with a buddy in duos, whatever it is, trios, quads, whatever, those options should always be available to you to just play the base, battle royale experience by yourself. Some of us have jobs and lives outside of gaming, and when you come home from work, you just want to jump in and play. You want to get going. I don't have time to go find somebody on a Discord server or through Twitter or whatever. I don't necessarily want to try to engage with somebody as a random teammate online and try and learn to play with them or whatever. I just want to jump into Warzone by myself and start playing that experience, surviving on that battlefield and have fun shooting at people. That as simple as that. But they will, like, on a weekly basis, take stuff away and put in these random other gameplay types that I didn't ask for. So, I mean, sure, if you want to spice things up with like a weekly or monthly playlist, do that. That's fine. But there should always be those base options. And that's, again, part of the problem today is you don't get to, the experience isn't catered to you as the player. The experience is you catering to the whims of the developer on a weekly basis. Whereas in the past, the developer would put out a game. You bought it, and that was now your experience for the next 2 or 3 years. And if you liked it, you stuck with it. If you didn't, well, you went and bought a different game eventually. Simple as that. So anyways, like I said, if you haven't had time or the experience recently of playing an older video game from, say, the 360, PS3 era, or the original Xbox, PS2, GameCube era, go pop one in. Whether you can, play one from Game Pass or backwards compatible somehow, or if you just have one of the old consoles, the simplified experience of old school games catered to what is it players enjoy doing. Let's make that game, and then getting in and out of that experience was so much better than it is in modern games. And we just need a return to that, or I don't know, eventually you're going to see it just degrade to a point where gaming just is no longer fun anymore. And I never want to feel like that.